When you talk about quick service and we talk about fast food, who clearly are having the greatest struggle, there's virtually no difference. The drivers aren't any different. The need states aren't any different. The cost certainly isn't any different at all either. You know what I mean? And there is a high degree of frequency with some of those low income consumers, purely born out of, a different set of household circumstances in many cases. If you're busier or you're working more jobs or groceries are expensive or your SNAP benefits are in question these days, whatever it is, there's quick service restaurants are absolutely a part of that routine. And if that consumer is struggling, I understand why restaurants want to go about this route. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, a consumer says, well, you've just chiseled away the price to the point where I begin to question the quality of this. Yes, it might fill me up, but do I like it? Is it worth it?
Why are consumers less responsive to marketing right now? Hello, this is Jonathan Mays, editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. And in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, I speak with Robert Byrne, the Director of Consumer and Industry Insights with Technomic, and a regular guest on this podcast. We wanted to talk with Robert about the general state of the industry, mostly because we had this question: why isn't anything working? Over the past couple of years, restaurant chains have unleashed more promotions at customers than ever before. They are introducing record numbers of limited time offers. They have more technology, and the number of deals available to consumers is at record levels also. Even fast casual chains that never before had to push lower prices are doing that right now. Now, Robert is an expert on consumer behavior, and we talk extensively about what is driving consumers away from restaurants. We discuss the consumer concerns about inflation and what they're thinking when they dine out. In short, consumers' motivation is a lot different now than it was not that long ago. It is a great conversation on this week's A Deeper Dive, so please check it out. All right, I'm here with Robert Byrne. Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, sir. Always a pleasure to be here talking with you, Jonathan.
All right. So as we sit here today, restaurants are throwing more of everything at the consumer. And I mean, they are throwing everything at their traffic problem. We are on pace, if I have my understanding correctly, to have a third straight year of record limited time offers. We have a huge number of consumers that are dining on a deal. We have in-restaurant beverage concepts. We have a number of other different beverage tests by companies like Dunkin', by McDonald's. We have more chicken products than you can shake a chicken wing at.
Or a leg.
Yes, a chicken leg, a chicken, whatever you want to call it. They are throwing everything.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? Because we still do not see any actual traffic growth.
I think about a story. It's a little bit left of center, but it is food service related. There was a place that I worked years ago, which was, had a sort of a dine-in lunch business and counter dine-in lunch business, and did a lot of catering. People come in and buy, big orders for things, either for dinner, for to-go, or whatever. Maybe catering for a significant party. They had a whole catering side of the company. Well, the owner of this business wanted to get out at one point. And so my friend, who was the manager, wanted to purchase said business because it was very lucrative. I want to say they did like $2 million a year, as a small independent place that was, pretty much entirely off premise, which is, great, right? Operationally, they made good money. So the conversation was this: okay, owner says, this is the price I want. And my friend says, I can't afford that. This is all as much as I have. So where do you meet in the middle? I have what I have. Like they eventually work something out, but her whole issue was, why won't she sell to me for what I have? That's how much I have. This is what consumers are up against. It costs me this much to make and serve item X to you. Consumer Y says, I don't have that many dollars in my pocket. this week. I might next week, but I don't this week. We share a chart with people, to whatever the audience is, and maybe you've seen this one before, looking at food away from home inflation compared to wage inflation. Now, CPI at one point post-pandemic had surpassed wage growth, but it's since calmed. And CPI now overall is lower than that wage growth inflation. Not so with food away from home inflation. There's still like a 4-point gap in that number, and it has not started to close. It hasn't eased, and until it does, we won't see any significant results. So this is what it costs me to do this thing. This is the amount of money I have. There's only one net result. It's just you're not going to get as much of my business because the money's not there. You can't, and if you're wealthy and you can afford as much food service as you want, you can't manufacture meals. There's only 21 a week I'm going to eat, if even that. So it's almost an unsolvable problem, save something like wage growth really kicking into high gear, or menu inflation tamping down significantly, giving that wage growth time to catch up. So you can throw anything you want at me. I might love it. I might love the sound of whatever your sauce is, your drink is, your this is, your that is. It doesn't create more money in my household balance sheet. It just doesn't. And so the ability for me to do something with that isn't necessarily any greater than it was before you started flinging everything at me. And then there's that whole other thing that we could talk about, which is sort of like the paradox of choice. Another little psychological thing that we play with ourselves. Too many choices usually ends up with somebody doing nothing. You know what I mean? I just can't decide. It's too stressful. Too many options to choose from. Oh, yeah. So there's a lot going on. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's kind of how I see it. Yeah. There's no choice. It makes
all sorts of sense. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think restaurants right now just seem much more expensive to the consumer today than they were 2, 3, or certainly 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, you have a consumer that feels pressure. I mean, the consumer buying power is not what it was just a few years ago. And even though on balance, now that might be changing, the labor market is weakening. You do hear a lot of layoffs. Consumers are more concerned today about the future of their ability to have a job. You have these different factors, and the restaurant industry today just doesn't seem like, even though it doesn't seem like a good value, or certainly to the U.S. consumer the way it was. And to your point, people that do have money, there's only so many of them. Like, I think, like you were when at the Create conference, you put out this graphic showing 10% of the population represents 50% of the spending. That's wonderful. But the restaurant industry needs that other 90% to be able to spend. There are only so many meals that consumers will go to restaurants for. So you either need a drastic increase in the number of people. By the way, we are not increasing the number of people in the United States because A, we're not having enough children, and B, we are putting a cap on the number of people that can enter the country. So that is not going to be a saving grace. And then we have essentially 90% of the U.S. consumer is concerned about their ability to continue to spend. That is a problem for restaurants.
It's a significant problem, and the simple fact is that if you look at consumers sort of broken out by that income that you are describing, those income cuts, and you say, here's the top percent, and here's those at the sort of lower end of that income spectrum, and you try to understand what is different about their behavior, or what dictates their behavior in a way that's different one versus the other. When you talk about quick service and we talk about fast food, who clearly are having the greatest struggle, there's virtually no difference. The drivers aren't any different. The need states aren't any different. The cost certainly isn't any different at all either. You know what I mean? And there is a high degree of frequency with some of those low income consumers, purely born out of, a different set of household circumstances in many cases. If you're busier, or you're working more jobs, or groceries are expensive, or your SNAP benefits are or are in question these days, whatever it is, there's quick service restaurants are absolutely a part of that routine. And if that consumer is struggling, I understand why restaurants want to go about this route. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, a consumer says, well, you've just chiseled away the price to the point where I begin to question the quality of this. Yes, it might fill me up, but do I like it? Is it worth it? Or is, am I better off just, foregoing food service, which I love, by the way, and I want to do more often, but can't, and just save it up for the splurge where I know I'm going to go somewhere. I might pay a little more, but I'm going to get what I want and what I feel I deserve. You know what I mean? There's that. And you can think about that whole casual dining versus quick service conundrum as I think a great launching point for understanding what's going on with consumers and younger consumers that they're not flush with income or anything along those lines. We can talk a long time about how they're having a more difficult time too. But if I look at, what Chili's or Applebee's is offering me at those price points, and then I look at how much it costs me to get a value meal or a bundle, a combo of some sort at a legacy fast food player, there's a big difference in my perception of which I'm going to enjoy more. There's my ability to go and get served at a table and sit there with my friends and actually have a good social time. Experience matters a lot to young consumers. And that's I'll put a pin in that, but this Gen Z is more like Gen X than they are like millennials thing I keep coming back to as well. So casual dining not only has sort of grabbed that piece of the heart and the mind of younger diners, but overall they have positioned themselves as actually an affordable option for food service. Now, they're not going to give you $3 snack wrap. That's not going to happen. But because the perceptions, the quality is higher, those actual affordability ratings, and the gap used to be 5-6 percentage points. Casual dining was below fast food in terms of affordability perceptions. That's closed. That gap is maybe 1 percentage point at this point over the years. Again, go back a couple of years, it was significant. So what are consumers feeling there? It's bang for buck. But you know what? Bang comes first. Buck comes second, right? That's the thing I think people don't necessarily think about. They're just the cheapest. I just want the cheapest. I just was on a call with a restaurant operator that was saying, hey, our bar offering is this, that. People don't choose the least expensive cocktail on our bar. They choose the most expensive because there's an experiential component to it. You know what I mean? It comes with flair. And the same goes for wine. Well, you can apply that same logic to almost anything, burgers, pizzas, whatever it is, because there's sort of a value equation that consumers will flip through in their mind. And cheap, how often is cheap appealing? You know what I mean? To me, not very often, except like when desperate times call for desperate measures.
Well, yeah.
But
so first off, are you saying that basically Gen Z is like Gen X without the joint problems?
So this is when I think about studying generations. I'm glad you picked up on that. There's sort of a leapfrog, right? What happens is, if you look at millennials and you look at the birth years and you look at where boomers are, those millennials, they're kids of boomers. They're not kids of Gen Xers. They're kids of boomers, right? So all of that sort of maverick consumerism, those things that you could apply to boomers, very much I'm not saying this in a negative way, but very much a me first mentality has been handed down to millennials. And we're going to see how that plays out with Gen Alpha in a couple of years. You add to that what my kids call the sticky iPad generation, right? So there'll be some interesting things. Talk about, digital dependency. But Gen Z, now they're the kids of Gen Xers, right? And the Gen Xers weren't look at me and, hey, I'm mad, or Gen Xers were leave me alone. Who cares? Whatever. Sarcasm, all that good stuff. The Slack.
Miserable.
Mentality.
Really miserable.
By choice
cranky
sometimes.
and miserable, and we're raising cranky and miserable kids.
Yes, and they're so funny. I love it. They have the darkest sense of humor. It's absurdist. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that I think I might have mentioned this to you last time we were talking. I think they've just embraced casual dining for what it is because it's not exclusively based on convenience. They have enough convenience in their lives. They have plenty. It doesn't need to be more convenient, you know, but it needs to be special. It needs to be memorable. It needs to spark something in them. That if that's joy, or in our case, if that's just pure unadulterated sarcasm, that could be good too, right? Whatever it is, you know, a cheap snack wrap might not be that thing that would inspire them or incent them into some sort of an emotional reaction or a feeling, and therefore a transaction. That's kind of the way I look at it. Like, you got to build something that's worth exploring, and a menu item can be, and often is. Taco Bell has proven that it frequently is, right? Because they're constantly reinventing what that looks like. But, you know, that's a treadmill. That's like a one of those hamster wheels that you can't get off once you're on it, right?
Yeah.
That pace of innovation.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, you bring up, like, to me, like, there's like two really key points. The one of them is like that consumers have as much convenience as they want, and that is 180% true. Like, the restaurant industry today is ultra easy. Like, it is so easy to order food from a restaurant today. They have thrown so much technology at restaurants over the past several years. Even if the restaurant themselves isn't actually investing behind technology, as long as they join DoorDash and Uber Eats, I can order takeout from them and pick it up or have it delivered. Or I can download. I mean, easy often, like, I'm sure you are, you know, I'm very busy. I have two kids. My two kids do stupid things that I have to go and rescue them from, all that other stuff. and I'm just traveling, doing all those other things. And so easy to me sometimes is just so ultra valuable. It is so easy for me to order food. And it's almost as if now that is the easy as the baseline. It is the baseline expectation. Making your restaurant easier today is not going to win you more sales. It is only going to keep you from losing them. What you probably, and I think this is what we're kind of coming to here with this conversation, and what you need to do to win is to get consumers excited about going to your restaurant. They do want to be served, because when they do go out, they do want it to be something special. They're cutting back on dining overall, so they're not visiting as much. But when they visit, they want to go out. We've seen this before, by the way, in the Great Recession. That was absolutely true. You had chains like Chipotle, Five Guys, Shake Shack, and others just doing enormous sales when on balance, you know, everybody was cutting back. You do see these situations when people start feeling stressed. When they go out, they want something special. So if you want to win, don't worry about easy.
Yeah.
Worry about special. There, I fixed it. It's all done. I can
Thank
quit.
you.
I can.
Do you get a consulting fee from everybody in the industry as a result?
I expect my consulting fee for fixing the world's problems.
There you go. I love it, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, easy is, first of all, I do believe that convenience, generally speaking, tends to get overstated. But the simple fact is, you nailed it. Convenience is, nobody has any advantage over anyone else in terms of convenience at all. So, you know, the idea that could be something that would fix a problem or that would change a problem, you know, obviously then it moves over up the hierarchy of needs, right? The Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's next? Well, how are your operations faring, right? You and I know that equity and loyalty, those things are built inside your restaurants. Otherwise, you know, you'd have like a Mr. Beast Burger or something like that really taken off, largest chain in the, yeah, sure, for the first week of sales, but Where is it after that? Well, there's nowhere to go. You can't go and experience it, and you can't touch it and feel it in this way. That even if you do like the food, and even that's a separate question and conversation, but I can go to a Chipotle. I can, have that experience. I can go to any brand, a Potbelly or something, where you have that sort of, assembly line model and sit down there. I can order it online and still go and sit down there, which people do, by the way. Just because it's a digital guest means it's often a hybrid guest. They ordered online because they're like, it's lunch, I'm busy, whatever. Then they go and they're like, I'm going to sit down here and eat it here. That's a hybrid guest, I would suggest, in close to half of those cases, if it's ordered for pickup. Delivery, yeah, that's separate, clearly. I could just end up eating it in their car. That's always a fun one, too. Right?
Oh, yeah, I love that occasion.
The dashboard.
The dashboard dining, we talked about that before, so weird.
But yeah, this is why the brands that continue to win are giving you something, and it's an experience or it's some sort of a culinary treat that you're not getting anywhere else. Authenticity matters to a degree too. Whatever it is that you specialize in, it matters as too. Not everybody, in the mind of the consumer, is going to be given a free pass just because they put a boba in a drink of theirs or something like that. No. That's reserved for brands that fit that model, in my mind. You know what I mean? In the mind of I'm saying my mind, the royal mind, right? So yes, you have to do something that differentiates you. And the easy thing to do is the food. The hard thing to do is the service. But the easy thing to do is the food. But if you really want to win, you got to do both. There's just no way around it. So focus on the value being communicated and being delivered in these other ways gives you more latitude with price. I mean, brands can still take price. Again, the cheapest brands aren't always the ones that win. Otherwise, Little Caesars would be like the biggest brand on the planet, And so that should be understood. Throwing value at people. We can talk about what Subway did to themselves back during the Great Recession as well, and think about, what the long tail effect of those types of efforts might actually end up being. And at the same time, you can talk about the brands who exploded in terms of growth. It wasn't based on value, discount deal, value, discount deal. Yeah, that might encourage people to do something that they might not have already otherwise done. That might also cannibalize. But it's not a strategy for long-term growth. It's a Band-Aid. And so, it's a corner that you can paint yourself into. We've seen that too, right? Mm-hmm. I like brands that are like, this is who we are. This is what we make. If you want something else, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And when you want what we have, we're the only brand you should think of when you think of this, because that's who we are and that's what we do. Yeah. And those ones, they're sort of, a little chip on the shoulder, but only to the degree that when you're talking about their category, versus, like you said, I think at the front of the conversation, desperation. Oh, help, we're desperate, please, pretty please, pretty please, because it does begin to feel like that. And yes, that can be a motivator for people who are strapped for cash and whatnot. But that's all it is. It's not something that necessarily is going to beget that lifetime customer value equity, that loyalty that you're really after. That's built on the experience.
Right. I think, I think that the perfect example, to me right now is actually Domino's. It's weird. If you think about it, it's a little bit on the weird side, but like for a long time before the pandemic, they had this decade-long run that I still think is pretty underappreciated, but it was a decade-long run, and it was built on the concept of making their food easier to order. And so today, when you order a Domino's, it is as easy as humanly possible. It is just super simple, and that is a primary reason why I use Domino's, because it's just really easy. And there's a value in that. But after the pandemic, they were unable. That didn't work any longer. You go back to 22, and their sales started falling, and their sales were falling for a variety of reasons, primarily because delivery was taking too long because they didn't have enough drivers, and their sales really fell. And the company has undergone something of a marketing transformation over the past couple of years that has focused instead on providing really good food at a really good value. So more of their marketing is focused on their food. They're innovating more. They're not they are not one of the companies that is flooding the zone with limited time offers, because they don't do limited time offers. So they're only adding a couple of permanent menu items a year, and then they're marketing the hell out of them, and they're generating strong sales from them. And so, and then they have these just really innovative value offers, like their $9.99 best deal ever, essentially an any pizza deal. Then they had their emergency pizza, which was one of the more innovative offers we've ever seen in the industry. And it's that shift. When Domino's recognized, that should have been a clue to the industry that easy doesn't work and convenience is not going to be a driving factor behind your sales, that you have to think of more you have to elevate your marketing.
So I love two things. I got several things I could say about Domino's. First of all, we know pizza is very deal driven, generally speaking, and so they've always played their cards perfectly in that regard. Personally, I'd like to see the Noid make a comeback. I think that would be really good.
That should. Oh God!
And I'm telling you, man, that would play with the kids, especially if it was, exactly as it was back in the day. Like, kids are into nostalgia. But thirdly, I think you nailed it. What they're going for in terms of value was best demonstrated, in my opinion, when they had that ad that they ran where they had the soccer team and they're trying to cut up the burger and hand pieces of a burger to people. Because this really hits on two things for me. There's there's the bang for buck, right? But the bang comes first. Like, look, how many people can eat this pie versus at the same price as that value meal, which is going to feed one, right? So there's that right out of the gate. So they didn't have to overstate it. It was a funny way to go about it. But they also nailed how pizza is so appropriate for this type of occasion specifically. And I'm not sure enough of the industry is paying attention to the importance of the occasion and the role that plays in the decisions that consumers make, because you and I can go to 5 different places. And each time we go to one of those places, we're using it differently. The occasion is different group of people, different setting, different time of day, all these things. And Domino's is clearly saying, we're not just good for that family dinner. We're good for when the team needs to be fed. We're good for just when you have multiple people participating in this occasion, because the dollar's going to stretch in a way that's different. It's not just we're giving you a meal for yourself for a lower price point. It's we're feeding more people for you at an attractive price point. So again, that approach I thought was fabulous. It spoke to the different need states and occasion factors or occasion settings, if you will, that consumers deal with on a daily basis. And it just opens up that sort of top of mind consideration for the brand in different situations. Like, a pizza party after the game or whatever is fine, but I just think really hammered it home. Like, this should be your first thought, the top of mind thought, when there's more than 1, 2, 3 people that need to be fed, because you're going to do it at a great price. And, you see how happy they are getting a slice of pizza as opposed to a slice of a burger. I thought that was great. And to your point, it's not about this is easy, this is fast. It's about the bang, and about making people happy, meeting people where they are. That's a hard thing to do, but that is exactly what that was about to me. Again, it would have only been made better if the Noid had made a little appearance in that particular one. So I'm waiting. All right.
I'm sure they are going to get right on that. Robert, this was fantastic. Really appreciate you again joining the podcast.
Oh, always my pleasure, Jonathan. Anytime, and good to see you and chat as always.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Spoons. You can find this and other episodes of the podcast on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. But by all means, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.